Question number 1, Mr Speaker.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and thank you for your statement as well. The government has introduced 2 new safe and legal routes for Ukrainian nationals, the Ukraine Family Scheme and the Homes for Ukraine scheme. And as of the 21st of April, over 71,000 visas under both schemes have been issued. Under these schemes, neither route is capped, and the Ukraine Extension Scheme permits Ukrainians already in the UK to extend their stay.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. Members from across this House have called on the Government to make it easier for people from Ukraine to seek sanctuary in the UK. But can the Home Secretary explain why the schemes for those trying to flee the Taliban are so limited and why, according to her own department, the Nationalities and Borders Bill does not establish safe and legal routes for those fleeing war, conflict or persecution?
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Well, in response to the Honourable Lady, first of all, the new plan for immigration spells out absolutely the government's approach to safe and legal routes. And in fact, as I've said many times, Mr Speaker, in this House, every safe and legal route needs to be bespoke based on the crisis that we are seeking to address. Secondly, in response to Afghanistan, the Honourable Lady will know that under the ACRIS scheme, we will welcome up to 20,000 people at risk who've been affected by the most appalling events in Afghanistan. That was announced last year, including women, girls and members of minority groups given their vulnerability.
We now come to the Shadow Minister, Holly Lynch.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. A family still in Ukraine has been reporting back to their Homes for Ukraine Halifax sponsors that they can hear the bombs getting closer every day of their 29 days and counting wait for a visa. The family in Ukraine has twins under 10 who remarkably have had their visas processed at different speeds. A Home Office whistleblower has described the scheme as designed to fail, with government figures showing that 40,000 visas have indeed been issued under the Homes for Ukraine scheme, yet just 6,600 Ukrainians have actually arrived in the UK because families who need to travel together cannot do so because just one family member, often a child, will have their visas delayed. So can the Home Secretary explain, if 40,000 visas have been issued, why so few have arrived in the UK and what she's doing to correct this?
I actually thank the Honourable Lady for her question because it's an important point that she is making. There are a number of points to make in response to her question. First and foremost, in terms of the reason why low numbers have come to the UK, as I've already said, over 71,000 visas for both schemes have been granted. And it is a fact, and in fact the Refugees Minister, the Honourable Member Lord Harrington, went to the region just 2 weeks ago, 10 days ago, to find out why and what more could be done to bring families that have been granted their visas to come over. First and foremost, as we've heard repeatedly from the Ukrainian government, and from governments in the region as well, would you like to stand up and respond? First of all, that those families want to stay in region, and that is a fact, and that is exactly why we're working with the various governments in region. And then, of course, she's made a very important point about families and younger children. Of course, much of that down is to the checks because they're not always travelling with parents, and safeguarding checks are being undertaken to ensure that they are all linked members of families, and these are important checks that have to take place.
We now come to SNP spokesperson Stuart C. MacDonald.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Less than half of 1% of Ukrainians fleeing Putin's war have so far found shelter in the United Kingdom. There are currently more sheltered in Ireland than here, despite our neighbours being 13 times smaller in terms of population. And the real reason for this is the unnecessary, inappropriate and shambolic visa system that the Home Secretary has decided to impose. Approximately 140 other countries allow visa-free access. Surely, even at this late stage, she must lift visa requirements for all, or at least some, Ukrainians fleeing Putin's war and get things moving.
Speaker, I've repeated many times the reason why we do have checks and we do have visas. I appreciate the political difference between the government and his party, but we are not members of the EU. We do not have open borders. And I also, if I may say so, I absolutely acknowledge that he has a fundamentally different point when it comes to open borders and not having checks on those that come to our country. But in this particular case, vital security checks are very important.